Today we're covering the story about how did the people who started a movement of independence in this country ran into issues, in particular betrayal. So let's talk about the people that started this movement. This movement started in 1660, the oldest movement in what we call America for black people. There was nothing that came before that. So this movement was focused on one thing and one thing only: forming an independent nation separate from the people that have brought them and kept them in captivity. That is the main focus of this movement. Here's what's interesting. That movement started in 1660, and today it still goes on. Now let's go into real deep parameters as to what took place and exactly how did people get impacted throughout this particular movement. So the movement was definitely a movement of independence, but to attain independence, they had to use a vehicle of military war. So it was a war that started in 1660 by one man, a man by the name of Cato. Cato encountered an idea that was unique. What is the idea? He didn't create the idea of forming a nation. It was given to him. A nation, a country, here in what we call America today. Now, here's the thing. It was not given to him. It was promised to him. That's right. It was promised to him. And who made the promising, since he was not the one that made it? But he said, God. God had promised them land in the area that they were at that time. So this idea doesn't really come from Cato. He was a recipient of a promise which he states came from God. So therefore, they led a movement to attain exactly what they were promised, and they went to war. That took place in 1660. The year after that, in 1661, another leader did exactly what Cato did to form a nation. And they went to war to attain this nation. So this movement of MAHALI, that's what we call it today. They called it MAHALI back then. That's how we got the name. We just adopted what was started in 1660, which means in Kiswahili, promised land. And every time you see what people call an uprising, which were really battles of a single war that lasted 200 years, the war that started in 1660, ended in 1860, there was a battle to gain the nation. That's right. Over 200 battles took place, and every time they went to battle, when they asked them what they were doing, they kept saying they're forming a nation, land promised to them. And they used many different ways to describe that term. They would use the word Jerusalem. They would use the word of Zion. They would use the word as Canaan. So this was a very unique system. However, there were some issues that they came across just like any other people. I'm going to give you an example. During the American Revolutionary War, one of the greatest soldiers that was actually a general of their army was a man by the name of Benedict Arnold. Benedict Arnold was a true fighter for America to become an independent nation from Britain. Nonetheless, over time, he became what people call a turncoat. He went from being an American, going back to being a British, and went to war against the people that he supported, the so-called Americans. That's called a turncoat. That's the term that they use. Basically, a traitor, a betrayer. And in MAHALI, the 200-year war, they have had people like that, just like Benedict Arnold. I'll give you an example. Perhaps what they call the father of black nationalism. Remember, these are terms that were used by white people. And those terms were done there specifically because it discredits the whole MAHALI war. And why they call him the father of black nationalism? because he was once part of the MAHALI movement. He wanted to form a country, a nation for our people, independent of all other nations. And then he joined the same people that he was going against. The same people that kept him in captivity and prevented him from starting his own nation. He joined them. And there's no one who truly in modern time that can be mentioned to as high as a man of Martin Delany, who they call the father of black nationalism, and they do that intentionally to confuse you what black nationalism is, because you don't do what he did. How do we know that? Because Cato did not do it. How do we know that? Because Gabriel Prosser did not do it. And how do we know that? Because the Mark Vesey, the man called Telemaque, did not do that. And most importantly, Nat Turner did not do that. Those names that I mentioned, these warriors that fought battles, did not turn against their belief and did not turn against fighting the people that they were going against a war. They did not go with them. They did not join them and then go against their own people. And that's exactly what Martin Delany did. And they present him to you as the father of black nationalism. And the reason he's the father of black nationalism, according to them, is to discredit everything that we did in those 200 years between 1660 to 1860, when we went to war against those people, like when Nat Turner went to war, when Mark Vesey went to war, when Gabriel Prosser went to war, when Cato went to war. All of those battles they discredit by this one man who went against everything that independence stood for, what Mahali, the Kiswahili for Promised Land, what that stood for us, to discredit it so you can follow his direction. And what is his direction? Quit. Stop pursuing black nationalism. Stop pursuing a black nation. Quit. Just go with America. Be pro-American. And that's the vast majority of black people. But this message is for those of us who believe in having our own nation. Do not be taken by the betrayal. Some who were leaders of our people and betrayed the movement that they believed in at one point. I'm going to give you another example. And this example you probably can connect to more. And listen to this video so you get an idea of what this leader, who was considered a leader to form a black nation, and how he became a traitor to the movement of independence. Listen.
Mr. X, I guess I call you that. Is that the proper appellation, yes. Mr. X? I'm wondering if you still believe, as I think you certainly did at the time you were allied to the Black Muslim movement, in a segregated black nation in North America.
I don't believe in any form of segregation or any form of racism. I'm against any form of segregation and against racism.
Am I right in saying that the Black Muslim movement, which you have left, did believe in that?
Well, Elijah Muhammad taught his followers that the only solution was a separate state for black people. And as long as I thought he genuinely believed that himself, I believed in him and believed in his solution. But when I began to doubt that he himself believed that that was feasible, and I saw no kind of action designed to bring it into existence or bring it about, then I turned in a different direction.
As you can see, he clearly was not a leader, because even if the person that he was under did not believe in promoting a black nation, if he himself believed it in his heart, he could have walked away from that leader and founded a new movement, a new organization, with his purpose is to form a nation. But here's the thing, he did walk away and form an organization. He most definitely did. But the organization's target was not to form a nation, to break away from that and become an integrationist. That's complete betrayal. And here's another example of this gentleman right here, who also was asked on live television as a member of the Republic in New Africa, as he was running for mayor for the city of Jackson, Mississippi. And the reporter asked him, are you going to become elected and form a black nation in the state of Mississippi? And his answer was no. Can you imagine if that question was asked to Denmark VC, Gabriel Prosser, Nat Turner? Do you believe that they would answer the question with a no? Not likely. They gave their lives to form a country. So no, they would never answer no. And this is the kind of people that we must be careful with. Because these people may have started to want a nation, and they become leaders of our people, and then quit and make a 180 and take you with them. And then you're lost. You say, well, we're forming a country, but we're trying this, and we're going to really focus on reparations because it's important to us. No nation comes out of reparations. Why put your energy on reparations? Does it give you a nation? Is that the outcome? Is that the goal of reparations, to form a country? Let's form a country. This is important for those of us who really want a nation. The nation of Mahali that yet to become a state, that we're going to create a state so we can have our own political power. This message is for you. Do not be taken from those who betrayed us. No matter how much you were taught how great they were, how important they are, and how much they uplifted our people, if that was the case, you would see them taking the same path as Nat Turner, Denmark VC, Gabriel Prosser, and Cato, all who gave their lives and never turned against forming our own country. Only us, the faithful ones of Mahali, that's all of these thousands and hundreds of thousands of people who are going to come together and form this country. We look forward to it. So remember, keep watching KCZIN, become informed and educated, and not just what has occurred in the past, but what's happening in the future in this process of forming our own country. And we are succeeding. We are going the next step beyond what the people before us did, and we're attaining attraction, but most importantly, we're getting close to forming our own country, the great nation of Mahali.